Hey Retro fans, welcome to episode 6 of Retro Gaming Memories. In this episode I'm going to talk about something that was a fundamental part of being a computer owner back in the day, being a gamer back in the day, and that is computer magazines. Now, when I got my Amstrad, it was about 1985, I'd kind of missed the initial boom, which was a sort of 1982-83, so I was a bit late to the game. But when I got my Amstrad, I'd got a software pack with it, and I'd got some literature with it, sort of advertising the Amstrad Computer User Club and all that kind of stuff. And you could send off money to Amstrad and they would send you back a sort of membership form, and you could get discounted software and all that kind of stuff. But that was my only exposure to the wider world of Amstrad ownership, of computer ownership. I didn't know what the system could do or what software was available for it. Well, games. I wasn't interested in software back in the day, I just wanted games. So the only thing I'd ever seen was the Amsoft titles that came in this literature. So, a young inquiring mind happened to be in John Menzies one day and saw all this stuff, these racks of magazines that I'd never paid any attention to. When I was a kid, obviously you looked at the comics. Magazines were for kind of teenagers and older people. But all of a sudden I had something, I had an interest in something that warranted a magazine. And like I say, I'd never really kind of had any exposure to magazines as a kid. It was all just comics. But anyway, I happened upon the computer section, and there were all these computer magazines, and I could see all these titles: Commodore, Amstrad, Spectrum, and all that kind of stuff, and Acorn, and all these different computer names. And I was like, "Ooh, what's all this stuff?" And I remember, seeing all these magazines. I didn't know what they really were. It's not like now that you can reel off, 10 magazines off the top of your head. It was all new, and I didn't know what anything was. And I remember looking at all the different magazines, not just the Amstrad one, because I didn't really know that there were other things out there apart from the computers that my pals had. I didn't know there was, Acorns and Dragons and God knows what, and all these other plethora, MSX and all that kind of stuff, and all these other computers that I'd only seen with the magazines. So I was flicking through these magazines, and it was amazing. I was like, oh, I'm actually interested in all this kind of stuff. Anyway, I didn't buy any because I didn't have any money at the time. We were out shopping. I don't know why we would have been uptown, but whatever was happening. I was up the town shopping with my mum, and we'd been looking. I'd been obviously killing time while we were away doing whatever adults were doing, that I wasn't interested in. But I'd gotten pocket money probably a couple of weeks later, and I went down to my local R.S. McCall newsagents. And I don't know if R.S. McCall was a predominantly Scottish thing, but they were the kind of local newsagents anyway. And I went down to R.S. McCall with my pocket money. I think I'd saved up actually. I didn't get £1 a week. I think I probably got 50 pence a week or something like that. But anyway, I'd saved up £1 and I went down to R.S. McCall's, and they had Amtix, which was an Amstrad magazine. And I remember buying that. Excuse me, throat's going silly. I remember buying Amtix, and I think it was 95 pence or 90 pence, something like that. And I probably got a 10 pence mixture and ate it on the road going up and back up to the house. But I remember kind of buying this magazine, but not looking at it, not even kind of reading it, that I didn't want to spoil it. And I remember it was a kind of summer's day. It was a nice day, which is a rarity in Scotland, which is probably why I remember it. But anyway, I remember going back home and sitting in the front door at my mum and dad's house. Used to have a sort of porch, a sort of covered porch. It was like two pillars, metal pillars, and a step it's sort of covered and all that kind of stuff. And I remember sitting on the opening the front door and sitting on the door, sort of still sitting in the house, if you know what I mean, with my feet on the porch, kind of hanging out, reading this magazine and kind of savouring it and looking at the cover and taking it all in. And it was Ollie Frey that did the artwork for the Amtix stuff. And I remember looking at this cover and just taking it all in and reading every bit of text that was all over it, as I've got a habit of doing. I read everything. But I remember looking at this magazine and kind of slowly flicking through it. And, I remember opening it up and seeing, pretty sure it was a US Gold advert at the time. And I'll see if I can find a picture of it, but it was a US Gold advert that had, can't remember if it just said US Gold or whatever, but it had the titles that were coming out, and I think it was like Bruce Lee, Bounty Bob Strikes Back. It was the kind of early US Gold games. I remember looking at it. It was kind of all black with striking letters on it. And I remember reading every word of it and just looking and sort of lusting after these games, thinking, God, it'd be amazing to own these games. Like, they would look amazing. And it was just a tiny wee static screenshot. But, I remember, and kind of flicking through each page and reading the letters, and some of it I didn't understand, the stuff that they were talking about. But I kind of read it anyway, and then read the reviews. And that's why you bought the magazines back in the day, was for the reviews. Because now you go on YouTube and you have a look and you get a 10-minute trailer in HD or 4K or 3D or whatever. Back in the day, obviously, they didn't have any of that. The way you found out about new and upcoming games, or games that were out, was to read the review in the magazine. And I'm pretty sure, issue 1 of Amtix, I'm pretty sure, like Bruce Lee and Yi Kung Fu and things like that were reviewed in there. And it would have been like Greenberry and Ghostbusters and all that kind of stuff. But reading all these reviews, there was like 20 or 30 games reviewed in it, and it was amazing reading all this stuff and seeing how much they cost, and wishing I could afford them, and just reading through it. And I don't know what it was, just the world of excitement that came, seeing these kind of previews, and obviously the adverts were designed to kind of get your juices flowing, and the screenshots and all that kind of stuff. But looking at all this stuff and just thinking about the possibilities, imagining what the game played like, by reading the descriptions and all that kind of stuff, and thinking what it might sound like, and just being totally excited by the whole thing. Anyway, I bought my copy of Amtix and I read it cover to cover. I'm really sorry, my throat's doing stupid things. Anyway, reading it cover to cover, and I was hooked, and I would save up my pocket money and get Amtix magazine as much as I could. But as I kind of got a little bit more into it, the Amtix stuff was a little bit too, I don't know what the word would be. It was kind of funky and fun and all that kind of stuff, which was great. But I remember seeing Amstrad Action. Now I don't know why I bought Amtix at first rather than Amstrad Action. It probably had a better picture on the cover or something like that. But I kind of discovered Amstrad Action after Amtix. And I remember getting Amstrad Action, and it had more serious stuff in it. It had a mix of games and sort of hardware reviews, and they had tutorials about writing BASIC and then assembler later on and all that kind of stuff. So it was a slightly, I imagine that the Amtix was kind of aimed at the younger audience, and the Amstrad Action was that kind of middle ground, sort of, I don't know, late pre-teens, sort of 9 to I don't know, 15 or 20 or something like that. And then they had like Amstrad Computer User, which was aimed at the serious kind of business user, the kind of more mature Amstrad owner. That's the way I always kind of worked it out. But yeah, so Amstrad Action became my staple magazine. I kind of swapped over to that from Amtix. I preferred the reviews. and I probably discovered Amstrad Action about a year after I'd started reading these magazines. So I'd built up a little bit of a software collection by then, and I kind of, my thoughts were the same as Amstrad Action's with regards to reviews and stuff. I seemed to sort of like the same type of games that they were reviewing. You know, if it got a decent score on Amstrad Action, I usually felt the same kind of way about the game. So I thought, right, it's a good kind of benchmark. You know, they're the same kind of thought process as me. So that was my go-to guide. Amstrad Action was my go-to magazine, and I ended up. I remember one year getting a subscription to Amstrad Action for my birthday. My mum said, "What would you like for your birthday?" And I said, "I'd love a subscription to Amstrad Action." And I think it was like 25 quid or something at the time for a year's subscription. So yeah, I got my subscription to Amstrad Action, and that was great. Previously, sort of prior to that, I had reserved it at the newsagents. You know, and you used to get your name written on just write on the magazine, you know, Campbell, whatever, blah blah blah, and you would go in and you would pick it up, and that was all good fun. But yeah, I mean, Amstrad Action was a great magazine, and I loved it. You know, like I say, it was my staple. They had type-ins, and I remember sitting one Christmas typing in this snow program, and all it did was made the screen black and dropped little dots that looked like snow, and when they hit the ground eventually it kind of just built up layer by layer, and if you left it running long enough, which I did, it would fill the screen and the screen would be white, and that was it, the program would just end. But it was like 10 lines of code or something, and I just typed it in, and you know, was amazed at this you know, this fantastic demo thing that was running. And some of the type-ins that you used to get in the magazine were amazing. You know, I remember there being an art package that you could type in, and that was another big draw of the magazines was, you know, type-ins, pokes, and you know, pokes and peeks. You could the sort of cheat mode type stuff that you could cheat on your games. You know, they had the sort of key presses or type in these funny names into the high score table to get your, you know, to unlock certain infinite lives and all that kind of stuff. But you know, sometimes Amstrad Action would publish sort of full games essentially that you could type in. They obviously weren't very good, but you know, you could type them in and have a free game. And that was a big draw. I remember going a bit more broad. Obviously, my memories are of the Amstrad to start with, but you know, back in the day, obviously there was loads of magazines, and a few of them kind of rose to prominence. For the Amstrad, it was Amtix and Amstrad Action, really. Amstrad Computer User was a kind of, like I say, a kind of close second, I suppose. But you had things like Zzap and Your Sinclair and Crash and all these other great magazines that were for the kind of main three micros, the big three. But you had sort of periphery magazines that would cover multi things, like Ace. I remember Ace magazine, and it covered all the micros, but it had arcade reviews. You know, reviews of arcade machines, and I was fantastic. I remember getting a copy of Ace, and it had a cover tape on it, and I'm pretty sure one side was a MIDI music demo. I seem to remember that they had set up this MIDI hardware and recorded this music thing. But on the other side, it was, I'm pretty sure it was Impossible Mission, the full game Impossible Mission, on multi-format. I'm sure it was Amstrad Spectrum and Commodore on one tape. I'm jumping slightly into what I'm going to talk about in a minute, but you know, there was Ace and there was CMVG, Computer and Video Games, and it was another multi-format magazine that was very popular. I read a couple of issues of it, but to me, you know, if you had limited funds, you bought the magazine for the system that you owned. You know, I couldn't afford to buy a magazine to read a Commodore 64 review, because what was the point? On occasion I would get Ace, you know, if I had spare money and I had already bought this month's copy of Amstrad Action or whatever, I would maybe get like Ace or something like that, just for something to read. But yeah, I remember computer and video games being huge, and having at the start having loads and loads of type-ins for different machines. You know, they published kind of lots of type-ins for like the ZX81 and whatever else, and Texas Instruments and whatever. But there was loads of these magazines, and they were brilliant. You know, like I said at the beginning, they were the kind of things that you went to. You couldn't. That was how you got your information. You know, you couldn't look at YouTube. There was no TV programs or anything that would review these games for you and tell you about stuff. There were computer programs on the telly, but you know, there were mainly kind of people in suits that looked like an episode of the Open University rather than anything else. So magazines were your information portal, and you know, they were great. And on occasion you would get, which I've mentioned just a little bit ago, cover tapes, and that was fantastic when you saw a cover tape. Amstrad Action used to do it. They did it on their birthday. They had the Amstrad Action birthday tape, and you would maybe get one at Christmas as well. And it was just a tape, literally sellotaped to the magazine, which was really annoying because when you took it off, if you cut it off, it left the sellotape on your magazine, and if you were stupid enough to tear it off, it would tear the label off the front of the tape, and it just looked horrible. But all of them did it, you know, your Sinclair and Zzap and all that kind of stuff, all at some point had cover tapes with, you know, usually older software or sort of public domain stuff and demos and things like that. And usually if you got a free game, it was crap. I remember getting Kung Fu, which was this one-on-one fighting game, but it was really sluggish, and you know, the characters were quite chunky, and it was alright, you know, for a freebie. But I'm pretty sure it was an Ocean gift. It was the other side of the tape on the Amstrad certainly was a kind of skating game, a futuristic skating game, which sounds bizarre. If I didn't have proof for these things, I'd think that, you know, I'd been smoking bizarre mushrooms or something when I was a kid. Some of the weird shit that I remember. But yeah, but I'm pretty sure I found out later on that it was a game that Ocean had kind of started to develop, and thought, this is never going to sell, so we'll just give it away. And they did, you know, and it boosted the magazines. Said, well, we'll give you a couple of quid for it or whatever, you know, so you get some of your money back. But then it was a big draw for the magazines to have a freebie and all that kind of thing. So, you know, it all kind of worked out. But then later on, I don't know if the magazine was starting to kind of dwindle a little bit as the popularity of the micros kind of faded a little bit, and the kind of 16-bit machines were coming in the very early days of 16-bit. To kind of get people still buying the magazines, the cover tapes became a regular thing. And it started off, it was demos and utilities that you would get. You know, you would get a demo of the kind of latest game that was coming out. And then the flip side would have, you know, copy your tape to disc and all that kind of stuff for, you know, assemblers and all sorts of things. But then, as the popularity of the micros sort of diminished, the cover tapes had more and more full games, you know, and it was a big exclusive. Oh, look, you know, this fantastic free game, full game, and all that kind of stuff. And it started off being really old releases, but it rapidly caught up. Because the 8-bit micros were kind of not dying a death, but you know, they had seen their day really. So, you know, before long, I remember Elite got published on the front of Amstrad Action. You got the full game of Elite, you know, and that was a massive draw for people. And there were some unreleased games got put on there and all sorts of stuff. Now again, unfortunately, or well, fortunately for me, but unfortunately for you. You know, my experience is all of the Amstrad, and you know, I know that, like I say, Zzap and Crash and Your Sinclair and all that all had cover tapes, and I'm pretty sure it was one of the Spectrum mags. I think it might have been Your Sinclair. I think they've got the sort of record that for some reason I'm sure they had 6 cover tapes on one of their issues. Like the whole thing was just covered in tapes, and I'm sure that it was something ridiculous. I don't know if it was a Christmas issue or something like that, but they had it was either 4 or 6 tapes on the, and it was like the most tapes ever on the front of a magazine. But you know, I'd love to know your memories of these magazines. You know, because like I say, I've only experienced the Amstrad side of things. I didn't read any of the other magazines. I know my friends did. You know, I had pals that had Spectrums and Commodores, and they would read their respective magazines. But even when you went round to your pal's house, you wouldn't sort of say, "Oh, do you want to read of this magazine?" Because they'd be like, "What am I wanting to read an Amstrad magazine? I've got a Commodore 64. There you go." You know, so there wasn't really any kind of cross reading. You never didn't give your magazine to your pal to have a read or whatever. So I never really experienced the other 8-bit magazines until, you know, fairly recently, when all the scans of them became available online, and then, you know, I would dip in and have a little read, and it was great seeing these different things. And I know people have a lot of fondness for them, and I know, like, Zzap had sort of popular cartoons. They had the Ollie Frey, I think it was Terminal Man. You know, you had cartoons and things, so all these regular features, and they're much loved. I'm sure Ollie actually released Terminal Man as a book not so long ago, like the full story. But I'd love to know your memories of these magazines. You know, what ones did you like to read? Why did you like to read them? Did you keep the cover tapes? Did you enjoy getting that? And, you know, was it exciting? I used to get excited when the magazines were coming out. You know, when the new when the new issue of a magazine was out, I was really excited, especially when they started carrying cover tapes, because I wanted to see, you know, what's going to be on the tape this month. You know, and it was exciting. It was a bit of a buzz. But then when the cover tapes were on, the magazines were up to, you know, $1.95 or $2.99 or something like that towards the end. But it was still a great way, you know, as a kid, to get sort of free software. You know, I've spoken before about when you didn't have much money, the things you would do to get games and stuff, you know, trading things or second-hand shops and all that kind of stuff. So it was another great way to get sort of free software and get games and all that kind of stuff. And I loved having Amstrad Action. I had, you know, I don't know if I would say hundreds of copies, but I had many copies of the magazine, which I've now unfortunately got rid of. I still have some up in my loft, but certainly my original collection is long gone. But that love of magazines has kind of continued right up to modern day. But when the 16 bits came out, I remember I had moved from my Amstrad. I sold my Amstrad and I got a Sega Mega Drive. And bizarrely, I didn't really read many Sega magazines. I used to read Mean Machines Sega. That was my kind of Mega Drive magazine that I used to read for reviews. But I don't know if it's because by then you could kind of rent video games in the video shops and stuff like that. So if you wanted to try a game, you know, instead of paying £3 for a magazine to read about it, you could pay £2 to go and rent a game and try it yourself. So I don't know if that's why I didn't bother so much about the sort of Sega type magazines. I would read them on occasion, you know, and maybe at birthdays and Christmas and stuff, people would get me a magazine as a wee kind of sort of stocking filler treat. So the sort of console era magazines sort of passed me by, and obviously the two main ones were the kind of Sega and Nintendo. So you had like was it Super Play? I think it was the Nintendo one. That was the kind of main sort of SNES magazine. But again, the draw was kind of less because there was no freebies on the cover for apart from anything else, and by then you were used to getting free stuff on the covers of magazines. So, you know, it had to be something very specific that you wanted to read about to get the magazine. And again, you know, if your experience is different, then let me know. If you grew up, you know, loving the Sega or the Nintendo magazines, then, you know, let me know what your experience is. Do a video response if you want, if you didn't want to type a big long email. You know, chuck me a little video response, tell me about it. Because like I say, my experience, the sort of console-y type magazines didn't have the same draw for me. But then, after I sold my Sega, I sold my Mega Drive because I wanted a computer. I wanted to get a 16-bit computer. Now previously I had been an Atari guy. I went from Atari to Amstrad. So my first kind of first love was Atari. You know, I had a bit of a sort of brand loyalty, although I'd got an Amstrad computer. But I really fancied an Atari, and I loved the look of the Atari ST. I thought it was a beautiful looking machine. And it had a really nice sounding keyboard, nice feel to the keyboard, which sounds a bit strange, but I've always been that kind of tactile. I might do a video on about my favourite keyboards, which is really bizarre, but I do actually have certain computer keyboards that I prefer to other ones, but that's probably getting a bit too geeky. But anyway, I might do a little video on that later on. But I really thought the Atari ST was a really nice looking machine, and my pal had one. He had an Atari 520 ST with a monochrome monitor, I'm sure it was 12-inch black and white monitor, and he gave me a loan of it. You know, he just gave me this whatever 500 quid worth of computer kit. I think he was going on holiday or something like that, and he gave me a loan of it. And I had a little play with it, but I didn't really know what I was doing with it. You know, he showed me how to load a game, but apart from that, I didn't know what to do with it, because I'd never used a mouse before. I'd never used a disc-based system before, so it was all completely alien to me. And you know, all this stuff now seems natural. You know, you get a mouse, you go in, or tablets and whatever else. Because even mice are becoming obsolete now. But back in the day, I had never used anything like that, so it was all kind of new to me. But I really fancied the ST. I really wanted to get an ST. So I had sold my Sega Mega Drive and all the games and all that kind of stuff, because I really fancied getting an ST. And I remember going into the newsagents and thinking, right, I'll get an ST magazine. You know, I'd do my research and see, you know, what the market's like, see what games and things are out for it, what you can do with it. And I remember going into the newsagents, and they had ST format and Amiga format. And I remember looking at the two magazines on the shelf. Now, I'd never thought about Amiga because, you know, I had that natural rivalry when I was a kid. You know, I was an Amstrad guy, Commodore 64, rubbish. You know, so Commodore, I wasn't really a Commodore guy. You know, I had a bit more brand loyalty towards Atari. But I remember looking at the two magazines on the shelf and seeing that the Atari ST magazine was a bit of a pamphlet compared to the Amiga magazine, which was like a phone directory. You know, I mean, it was probably about, I don't know, not quite a centimetre thick, but it was thick. And the ST magazine was, you know, really quite flimsy in comparison. And the ST magazine had one cover disc, and the Amiga format had two cover discs. So I actually bought both magazines and read them cover to cover, and pretty much straight away saw that the ST at that point was dying. Now I can't remember what year it would actually be, but I got the Amiga 600. It was just not long out, the Wild, Weird and Wicked pack, so I'm not sure when that came out. But that's when I kind of got into the Amiga scene. Yeah, I remember looking at the ST format and feeling slightly dismayed, you know, disappointed that the ST was clearly dying. You know, when you looked in comparison to the two machines, now you go and look at a video on YouTube, you know, ST versus Amiga, let's have a look, or PS4 versus Xbox One, whatever. But when you looked at the reviews for upcoming games, you know, ST format had like 3 or 4 reviews for games, and Amiga format had like 15 or 20. You know, all the games were coming out on the Amiga as opposed to the ST, and the ST had a few sort of desktop publishing art packages, music packages and things like that, whereas the Amiga format had loads of stuff coming out for it. And I do remember feeling disappointed because I wanted an ST, because I fancied trying to make music on a computer and all that kind of stuff, and obviously the ST had MIDI ports and compatibility and all that kind of stuff, so it was a better machine from a music point of view. And like I say, I had that sort of slight brand loyalty to Atari, but I ended up getting the Amiga. But I remember the Amiga format magazine that I got had 2 discs on it, and one disc was a demo of a game called Syndicate, which was a strategy game, which I immediately dismissed because I didn't do strategy games at the time. You know, I was a run and gun shooty stuff, you know, arcade type games. Strategy games, I didn't know what I was doing though. But it had Syndicate, a demo of Syndicate, and the other disc was a disc, I think, called Pro Tracker, and it was a music making sequencer. And I remember getting this magazine and reading it and you know, making that decision to get the Amiga, and then that was it. I was an Amiga kind of guy. And the Amiga format was the magazine that I kind of stuck with. And I will talk about my Amiga. I'm going to save that for episode 10, so stay tuned, because it's going to be a big, long episode with tons of memories and stuff. So I've kind of touched on it a little bit here. I went off on a tangent, as I always do. But the Amiga format was the magazine that I kind of stuck with. Simply because you got a full music package on the front and this demo of Syndicate. So yeah, reading the magazine and all the games that were coming out and all that kind of stuff, it just seemed amazing. And again, it had the free stuff on the cover, you know, 2 cover discs, brilliant. And you tended to get a game demo, so it was always like a disc with demos, game demos, and then another disc with some serious software or sort of PD, full game, public domain stuff or shareware. But by the time I got my Amiga, I was working. I was an apprentice electrician, earning £37 a week. Woof, marvellous. I was earning 97 pence an hour, brilliant. But I had some cash, which let me buy magazines. And I'm pretty sure like Amiga format was maybe $3.99 or something like that when it first sort of started. And I became an avid reader and would buy it every month. But then once I got into the Amiga, there were other magazines, and it turns out, you know, they ended up being about 15 different Amiga magazines or something like that, something ridiculous. But I ended up becoming a regular Amiga format, CU Amiga, One Amiga and Amiga Power Reader. I would buy all 4 of them because you got loads of cover discs. You know, every month I would have about 10 or 12 discs of stuff, and I've still got all those cover discs up in my loft. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of the bloody things. I got into Amiga User International later on as well. That was another cracker. It had a lot more serious stuff, so once I got into using my Amiga for serious things, that was a magazine that I would buy. But you know, you were buying these things you know, every month, and I don't know if people stuck to one magazine or if they would buy multiple magazines at the time or whatever. But I remember being in John Menzies in the Gyle in Edinburgh. I'd been working out there on one of the big Scottish Equitable building that's there, and I remember going over, you know, Friday we had been paid, went over to the Gyle, and went into John Menzies, and you know, it was great because I'd just been paid and all the new magazines were out. So I remember going along the shelf, getting an Amiga format, CU Amiga, you know, Amiga Power, the One Amiga, and probably Amiga User International as well. In fact, it was probably 5, because I remember standing in the queue, and there was a wee old lady in front of me, and she had bought a couple of magazines, you know, sort of women's magazines, Women's Weekly or whatever, but a couple of kind of the women's magazines, and I think a bar of chocolate or something like that. And the girl had said, you know, that's whatever, £2.50 or something, and the wee woman went, £2.50 for a couple of magazines, Jesus, you know, bloody rip off, that's a fortune. So she had paid her money, and she was trying to get her bags and all that ready, and you know, trying to shuffle out my way, and I said, look, it's alright, take your time, you know, just get yourself ready, it's fine. So the lassie on the till scanned through my magazines and put the 4 or 5 magazines into a bag and went, that's £24.30, thanks. the wee old lady nearly had a bloody heart attack. She kind of did a double take and looked and thought, you know, you must have bought half the shop for 24 quid. And there's this carrier, this lovely big heavy carrier bag full of computery magazine goodness. And yeah, you know, this poor old, I always remember that, this poor old woman nearly had a heart attack that, you know, 5 magazines was 25 quid. And in hindsight, it's nuts, you know, but that's the kind of thing you did back in the day, you know, when you were that age, you know, late teens or early 20s or whatever, and you would just spend your money on stuff like that, you know, games or magazines or whatever. That poor old dear. But the Amiga magazine thing was great. That was, you know, I spent an absolute fortune on Amiga magazines, and I had hundreds of them. I've still got, thanks to one of my pals, I've still got a huge collection of CU Amigas and some Amiga formats and things in my loft. And it's great to go back and read through these old magazines. And I actually met my pal that gave me those magazines because I put an advert in the magazine. And I actually said that in his best man speech, you know, I met him because I put an advert in a magazine, which got many guffaws, but it was genuine, except the magazine was asking if anybody had a copy of Barbarian for the Amiga. You know, it wasn't a Lonely Hearts ad or something like that. And I'd put in, does anybody have this game for the Amiga? And I'd put my name and address. And he actually kind of looked me up in the phone book and phoned me, and he says, yeah, I've got an Amiga, I've got it, and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, we kind of became best pals over that. You know, we kind of met up and played games and all that kind of stuff. And became best pals, and we're still pals to this day. So it was cool to go back and read the magazines and see my original letter in 1996 or whatever it was. But after the Amiga magazines, that trend of me buying magazines for cover discs continued. You know, the CD32 had quite a few different magazines. Basically, if there was a magazine that had a cover disc that I was interested in, I would buy it. And I think that's how I got into Amiga User. Well, maybe not into Amiga User International, but they had CD32 cover discs, sort of multimedia discs with demos and things on them. And then there was CD32 Gamer came out, and you know, a few magazines with CD32 demos and stuff. And eventually they published full games. You know, I think it was a tenner for the magazine with a full game on it. You got Lamborghini American Challenge and Quick the Thunder Rabbit and stuff. You know, so you would get full games for sort of special editions. But that process of me buying stuff for cover discs continued through the rest of my system owning career. You know, through the CD32, the PlayStation. You know, I used to buy oh god, what was it called? It wasn't a PlayStation format. Was it just the official PlayStation magazine? Official PlayStation magazine, and they would have the cover disc, the demo thingies. I would get those. So yeah, the PlayStation demos and all that kind of stuff were great. And then PC, you know, the PC was just nuts for the software that you would get on the cover of that, you know, because by then you were into the realms of CD-ROM, so you would get 1 or 2 CDs, you know, on a magazine, and you'd get all this great software. The CU Amiga and Amiga format and all that kind of stuff, they eventually had cover CDs, which on an Amiga was brilliant. You know, having all this stuff. I've actually managed to amass a complete collection of Amiga format and CU Amiga and CD32 cover discs, which is kind of scary. I've got them all in a big binder. Big thick binder. I don't know, there must be about 150 CDs or something. That's nuts, but it gives you a great library of software for your computer, you know. But yeah, I mean, right up, you know, through the PC era, getting all your cover discs and all that kind of stuff was another great way to get all your software. So that for me continued all the way right through until it kind of died a death. You know, the magazines kind of went back to the beginning. You know, by the time the PlayStation 2 came out, you know, I think the Dreamcast was the last kind of magazine to have cover discs, really, because by the time the PS2 came out, you didn't really get demos that I remember, and certainly past that, you know, it just went back to being a magazine. You know, you didn't really get demos and stuff, so it kind of went back. And now, obviously, if you buy any sort of console magazine, there's nothing. It's just the magazine. And the only magazine I now buy, well, I actually subscribe to it, is Retro Gamer. You know, and I really read it. On occasion, I'll get a PlayStation magazine. You know, and dip in. You know, my wife, as a wee treat, will get me the PlayStation magazine, so as I can just keep up to date with bits and bobs. But Retro Gamer is the only magazine that I subscribe to now, and I've got a complete collection of Retro Gamer from issue 1 with all the cover discs right up to today's issue. God knows how many. I mean, there must be hundreds of issues. I think it's 160 or something stupid like that. But yeah, I mean, it's nice. I'm not like a hoarder or kind of weirdo that has to have every issue of everything. Retro Gamer just happens to be the only one that I've actually kind of, you know, got everything of. And I do have a few of the kind of old magazines to dip in and out, and it's fun to kind of go back and read them. But yeah, anyway, listen, I think that's probably going to do it. There's not much really else I can say about computer magazines, apart from, you know, they were a huge part of the computer and gaming scene, you know, from the 80s right through to the probably early 2000s. You know, and it's a shame now that they've kind of died out a little bit. You know, and they're certainly not what they used to be. You know, I find that modern gaming magazines are a little bit kind of dry, or maybe it's just that I'm not really that interested in what they're talking about. You know, a lot of modern games are all these multiplayer online. You know, your disc's basically a coaster that doesn't do anything. So they all review these huge games that take 5 million hours to play, and you know, you have to have a PS Network account and you can play it in VR. And I'm not interested, you know. I want to sit down and play a game for half an hour. You know, I've not got half my life to sit and play these things. So anyway, I'm off on another tangent. The reviews that are in these magazines, there's only some of them interest me, you know. But back in the day, I would read the magazines voraciously, from cover to cover. You know, every single word. Look at all the adverts and all that kind of stuff. You know, and that's another thing as well, I suppose, that I've forgotten to talk about, is sections of magazines. You know, the sort of cheat section. I spoke a little bit about it, I suppose, but getting printed maps and all that kind of stuff in magazines, and you know, all those kind of mad things that you used to get, and all the adverts at the back for all the sort of shareware games or kind of homebrew games, I suppose, or discount software and stuff. But anyway, I've waffled on far too much, probably bored you senseless, but you know, let me know what your memories of magazines are. You know, what ones did you like to buy? You know, did you buy them all? Did you only buy certain ones? Did you buy them because they had free stuff on the cover like I did? You know, did you use that stuff, or did you just chuck it away? Were you just buying it for the magazine? You know, let me know your experience of the magazines and what you liked about them or didn't like. But anyway, I hope this has been semi-entertaining. I feel like I've waffled a lot of nonsense, but yeah, get in touch, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. You know, drop me emails, send me questions. I sound like a broken record, but you know, keep in touch. I like to read all your comments and stuff. You know, and yeah, anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.